earlier this summer, our team here at Family Research Council was among the first, if not the first, to report on an incident regarding a bivocational pastor in Baton Rouge who was fired from his job at a local public library after he refused to use the preferred pronouns of a gender-identifying co-worker. Well, that pastor is fighting back, thank God, and he's doing so with the help of our great friends over at Liberty Counsel. And joining me now to discuss this is Matt Staver, who is the founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. He's also pastored several churches and produces a Bible study podcast, among a host of other things that he does. Matt, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always great to see you, my friend.
Thank you, Jody. Always a good opportunity to be with you and the great people at FRC. In fact, it was Family Research Council that broke this story, and that's how Liberty Counsel learned about this story with Pastor Luke Ash in the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. So thank you for doing so, and thank you for keeping all of us informed.
It's great. Well, Pastor Ash actually was with us this past weekend at our Pray Vote Stand Summit in Southern California. And Matt, I'd like to get started by showing you just a little clip of what he shared, and then we'll go from there. Play the clip for me.
I was working there for a few months, and I was in a conversation with a colleague about somebody that she was training, and in the course of that conversation, I used biologically accurate pronouns, and my coworker corrected me and said that they prefer he, and I said, I don't do that, and she said, you don't use preferred pronouns? And I said, I don't do that. And she said, that's very respectful, and I said, yes, that's very respectful. Thinking about the image of God, how the Lord has created each one of us in his image. And so to tarnish that would be to vandalize the good creation that God has made each and every one of us with the sex that he has given to us. So the next day, I was brought into the office, shown the inclusivity policy. I was given the option to change course. And I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to lie. And 2 days later, I was fired from the library.
All right, Matt Staver, hearing that, I think most of us instinctively feel what the library did was wrong. But can you tell us a little bit more precisely how the library acted unlawfully here? What did they do?
Well, they certainly violated Title VII, which is the law that governs employment. But they also, since they are a public library here, they also violated the federal First Amendment and also the state constitution, right to religious freedom. So there's three different categories of law here that they violated. Under Title VII or under the First Amendment, where you have religious free exercise rights, for example, in this particular case, they knew that he had a religiously based objection. He's not going to lie. He's not going to give false pronouns to someone. So they should have asked about how, or they should have perceived in determining how they could accommodate this. Well, this is pronouns, right? So how often do you refer to your colleagues by pronouns? You refer to them by first or last name, for example. They could have simply said, whenever talking to this particular employee, can you just use their name? Which I'm sure Pastor Luke Ash would be happy to do so. He just didn't want to lie. He could use the person's name, whatever that name would be, but he's not going to tell a female employee that they are something other than how God created them as female, in this case, male. That's an absolute lie. So the library should have it's a very easy accommodation, but in fact what the library did is they have the so-called inclusivity policy that each employee has a so-called right to choose their own pronouns. But they don't have a right to force other people, like Pastor Luke Ash or anyone else, to go along with that delusion or that lie. And that's really, I think, the problem with the library. So we sent a demand letter to the East Baton Rouge Parish Library on behalf of Pastor Luke Ash. We are asking them to reverse course. They need to actually reinstate him. They need to pay him back pay as well. And if not, this will result in, unfortunately, litigation against this library because they've clearly violated his rights And not only to get against Pastor Luke Ash, if they did it against him, they're going to do it against everybody. So this has to end, and I'm glad Pastor Luke Ash is standing up for his freedom.
Yeah, we are too. So what are the possible different outcomes here? What could happen as this moves forward?
Well, what the preferred option would be is that the library just understands that it made a mistake and they need to apologize. They need to reverse course. They need to bring Pastor Luke Ash back, and they need to pay him for back pay. That's really what needs to be done. And then going forward, he doesn't have to refer to someone based upon a false pronoun. He can refer to that person, or this was someone who was new. He could refer to that person by their first or last name. That's an easy fix. That's what really needs to do. But if they don't do that, if they dig their heels in, then I believe this will result in a lawsuit, a federal lawsuit. And I know Family Research Council, you all have been so good at getting this information out. So frankly, the people of Louisiana and the people of Baton Rouge, they ought to be outraged at this, and they ought to make their voice known. This is a publicly supported library, and it's their tax dollars that are supporting this library that people have an interest in correcting.
Matt, less than a minute before we've got a hard break here, but what advice would you give to people who may encounter this type of situation? It's not happening just in Baton Rouge. We're seeing more and more of this.
Well, I think Pastor Ash has done the right thing. Number one, he said that he's not going to participate in that false pronoun, and it's based upon his religious beliefs. And stand firm. Don't compromise on this particular issue. You're not helping anybody. You're hurting somebody by giving them a false delusion. And then if you have issues, contact Family Research Council. You can get the word out. Liberty Counsel will stand beside you to make sure that the legal issues are protected and your rights are protected.
Thank you so much, Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Always great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right, by the way, for those of you who are listening and watching right now, we do have a petition through which you can stand with Pastor Luke and push back against the left's deceptive and destructive ideology that punishes faith. You can simply text the word pastor to 67742 to sign that petition.